Welcome back to Bible Quizzes. So today's quiz is on the book of Genesis. Let's get started. 1. Cain felt that the punishment that God gave him for killing Abel was light. False. Genesis 4:13. And Cain said to the Lord, "My punishment is greater than I can bear." Two. Adam had sons only. He didn't have daughters. False. Genesis 5:4. After he begot Seth, the days of Adam were 800 years and he had sons and daughters. 3. The dove was the first bird Noah sent out after the floods. False. Genesis 8:7-8. Then he sent out a raven, which kept going to and fro until the waters had dried up from the earth. He also sent out from himself a dove to see if the waters had receded from the face of the ground. 4. The serpent asked Eve if all the fruits in the garden were forbidden. True. Genesis 3:1. Now the serpent was more cunning than any beast of the field which the Lord God had made. And he said to the woman, "Has God indeed said, 'You shall not eat of every tree of the garden'?" 5. Cain and Abel were twins. False. Genesis 4:1-2. Now Adam knew Eve his wife, and she conceived and bore Cain, and said, "I have acquired a man from the Lord." Then she bore again, this time his brother Abel. 6. God created the sun before he created the plants. False. The plants were created on the third day, while the sun was created on the fourth day. 7. It is Sarai who suggested that Abram should get a child with Hagar. True. Genesis 16:3. Then Sarai, Abram's wife, took Hagar her maid the Egyptian and gave her to her husband Abram to be his wife after Abram had dwelt 10 years in the land of Canaan. 8. Abram accepted to take battle spoils in exchange for his servants. False. Genesis 14:22-23. But Abram said to the king of Sodom, "I have raised my hand to the Lord that I will take nothing from a thread to a sandal strap, and that I will not take anything that is yours, lest you should say, 'I have made Abram rich.'" 9. It is Sarai who named Hagar's son. False. Genesis 16:15. So Hagar bore Abram a son, and Abram named his son, whom Hagar bore, Ishmael. 10. God commanded Abram to be blameless. True. Genesis 17:1. When Abram was 99 years old, the Lord appeared to Abram and said to him, "I am Almighty God, walk before me and be blameless." 11. Abraham laughed when God said he and Sarah would have a child. True. Genesis 17:17. Then Abraham fell on his face and laughed, and said in his heart, "Shall a child be born to a man who is 100 years old? And shall Sarah, who is 90 years old, bear a child?" 12. God blessed Ishmael, Abraham's son. True. Genesis 17:20. And as for Ishmael, I have heard you. Behold, I have blessed him, and will make him fruitful, and will multiply him exceedingly. He shall beget 12 princes, and I will make him a great nation. 13. Abraham and Ishmael were circumcised on the same day. True. Genesis 17:26. That very same day Abraham was circumcised and his son Ishmael. 14. Abraham circumcised his male servants too. True. Genesis 17:27. And all the men of his house born in the house or bought with money from a foreigner were circumcised with him. 15. Abraham was a prophet. True. Genesis 27. Now therefore restore the man's wife, Abraham's wife, for he is a prophet, and he will pray for you, and you shall live. But if you do not restore her, know that you shall surely die, and you and all who are yours. 16. Sarah told Abraham to chase away Hagar and her son. True. Genesis 21:9-10. And Sarah saw the son of Hagar the Egyptian, whom she had borne to Abraham, scoffing. Therefore she said to Abraham, Cast out this bondwoman and her son. 17. Abraham was happy when Sarah said they should cast Hagar out. False. Genesis 21:10-11. Therefore she said to Abraham, Cast out this bondwoman and her son, for the son of this bondwoman shall not be heir with my son, namely with Isaac. And the matter was very displeasing in Abraham's sight because of his son. 18. Abraham died before Sarah. False. Genesis 23:2. So Sarah died in Kirjath Arba, that is Hebron, in the land of Canaan, and Abraham came to mourn for Sarah and to weep for her. 19. Abraham divided his inheritance equally among all his sons. False. Genesis 25:5-6. And Abraham gave all that he had to Isaac, but Abraham gave his gifts to the son of the concubines which Abraham had. And while he was still living, he sent them eastward, away from Isaac his son, to the country of the east. God allowed Isaac to go to Egypt during the famine. False. Genesis 26:2. Then the Lord appeared to him and said, Do not go down to Egypt, live in the land of which I shall tell you. 21. Which chapter of Genesis talks about the fall of man? 2, 7, 5, or 3? Genesis 3:1. Now the serpent was more cunning than any beast of the field which the Lord had made, and he said to the woman, Has God indeed said, You shall not eat of every tree of the garden? 22. Fill in the blank. The voice of your brother's blood cries out to me from the blank. Ground, heavens, spirit world, or underworld? Ground. Genesis 4:10. And he said, What have you done? The voice of your brother's blood cries out to me from the ground. 23. Where did Cain settle after killing Abel? Tob, Nod, or Babel? Nod. Genesis 4:16. Then Cain went out from the presence of the Lord and dwelt in the land of Nod on the east of Eden. 24. What was the other tree in the middle of the garden besides the forbidden tree? Tree of death, tree of life, tree of love, or tree of wisdom? Tree of life. Genesis 2:9. And out of the ground the Lord made every tree grow that is pleasant to the sight and good for food. The tree of life was also in the midst of the garden, and the tree of knowledge of good and evil. 25. Whom did Adam blame for eating the forbidden fruit? Woman, serpent, devil, or God? The woman, Genesis 3:11, and he said, "Who told you that you were naked? Have you eaten from the tree of which I commanded you that you should not eat?" Then the man said, "The woman whom you gave to be with me, she gave me of the tree, and I ate." 26. Who among Cain's descendants also killed a man? Enoch, Methuselah, Lamech, or Tubal-Cain? Lamech, Genesis 4:23-24. Then Lamech said to his wives, Adah and Zillah, "Hear my voice, for I have killed a man for wounding me, even a young man for hurting me. If Cain shall be avenged sevenfold, then Lamech 77-fold. 27. How many of each of the birds did Noah take into the ark? 2, 7, 5, or 6? Seven. Genesis 7:3. Also 7 each of birds of the air, male and female, to keep the species alive on the face of all the earth. 28. Where did Noah get food to eat while in the ark during the flood? He fished? God provided for him food. He ate the animals in the ark? Or he gathered food beforehand? He gathered food beforehand. Genesis 6:21. And you shall take for yourself of all food that is eaten, and you shall gather it to yourself, and it shall be food for you and for them. 29. How did God dry up the flood waters after the rain ceased? With the sun, with fire, with a wind, or with an earthquake? With a wind. Genesis 8:1. Then God remembered Noah and every living thing, and all the animals that were with him in the ark, and God made a wind to pass over the earth, and the waters subsided. 30. How many times did Noah send out a dove? Once, thrice, twice, or 4 times? Thrice. Genesis 8, 10, 12. He also sent out from himself a dove to see if the waters had receded, and he waited yet another 7 days, and again he sent the dove out. So he waited yet another 7 days and sent out the dove. 31. What did Noah offer for burnt offerings after the floods? Both clean animals and birds? Only clean birds, only clean animals, or grain offerings? Both clean animals and birds. Genesis 8:20. Then Noah built an altar to the Lord and took of every clean animal and of every clean bird and offered burnt offerings on the altar. 32. What name was given to the tower that men were building to reach the heavens? Babylon, Bethel, Babel, or Bethany? Babel. Genesis 11, 8-9. So the Lord scattered them abroad from there over the face of all the earth, and they ceased building the city. Therefore its name is called Babel, because there the Lord confused the language of all the earth. 33. How many kings were fighting in the great battle that led to Lot's captivity? 2 kings against 5? 3 kings against 5? 5 kings against 5? Or 4 kings against 5? 4 kings against 5. Genesis 14:9. Against Chedorlaomer, king of Elam, Tidal, king of nations, Amraphel, king of Shinar, and Arioch, king of Elasar. 4 kings against 5. 34. What did Melchizedek give Abram when they met? Gold and silver, bread and wine, a rod and staff, or land and livestock? Bread and wine. Genesis 14:18-19. Then Melchizedek, king of Salem, brought out bread and wine. He was the priest of God Most High, and he blessed him and said, Blessed be Abram of God Most High, possessor of heaven and earth. 35. What animals did Abram sacrifice to seal his covenant with God? A heifer, a female goat and a ram, an oxen, a donkey and a ram, a lamb and a bull, or a calf, a lamb, and a dove? A heifer, a female goat, and a ram. Genesis 15:9. So he said to him, Bring me a 3-year-old heifer, a 3-year-old female goat, a 3-year-old ram, a turtle dove, and a young pigeon. 36. How old was Abram when Ishmael was born? 99, 90, 75, or 86? 86. Genesis 16:16. Abram was 86 years old when Hagar bore Ishmael to Abram. 37. Fill in the blank. As for me, behold, my covenant is with you, and you shall be a father of blank. Holy nation, every nation, many nations, or a great nation. Many nations. Genesis 17:4. As for me, behold, my covenant is with you, and you shall be a father of many nations. 38. How old was Abraham when he was circumcised? 120, 99, 88, or 75? 99. Genesis 17:24. Abraham was 99 years old when he was circumcised in the flesh of his foreskin. 39. Why did Sarah deny that she laughed? She was afraid, she was ashamed, she was angry, or she was confused? She was afraid. Genesis 18:15. But Sarah denied it, saying, I did not laugh, for she was afraid. And he said, No, but you did laugh. 40. How many daughters did Lot have? 2, 7, 3, or 5? 2. Genesis 19:30. Then Lot went up out of Zoar and dwelt in the mountains, and his 2 daughters were with him, for he was afraid to dwell in Zoar, and he and his 2 daughters dwelt in a cave. 41. Who among Lot's daughters made the plot to sleep with their father? The eldest? Neither. The youngest? Or it's not mentioned. The eldest. Genesis 19:31-32. Now the firstborn said to the younger, Our father is old, and there is no man on the earth to come into us, as is the custom of all the earth. Come, let us make our father drink wine, and we will lie with him. 42. Who are the descendants of Lot which he conceived with his daughters? Edomites and Amalekites, Midianites and Ishmaelites, Canaanites and Perizzites, or Moabites and Ammonites? Moabites and Ammonites. Genesis 19:37-38. The firstborn bore a son and called his name Moab. He is the father of the Moabites to this day, and the younger she also bore a son and called his name Ben-Ammi, and he is the father of the people of Ammon to this day. 43. What punishment did God give to Abimelech for taking Abraham's wife? He made him blind, caused famine in his land, his entire household became childless, or he struck him with leprosy. His entire household became childless. Genesis 20:17-18. So Abraham prayed to God, and God healed Abimelech, his wife, and his female servants. Then they bore children, for the Lord had closed up all the wombs of the house of Abimelech because of Sarah, Abraham's wife. 44. How old was Isaac when he was circumcised? 8 years old, 8 days old, 8 months old, or 10 days old? 8 days old. Genesis 21:4. Then Abraham circumcised his son Isaac when he was 8 days old, as God had commanded him. 45. Where did Abraham bury Sarah? In the field of Machpelah, in the field of Ephrata, in the cave of Adullam, or in the valley of Siddim? In the field of Machpelah. Genesis 23:19. And after this Abraham buried Sarah his wife in the cave of the field of Machpelah before Mamre, that is Hebron, in the land of Canaan. 46. How much did Abraham buy the land for a burying place for Sarah? 200 shekels of silver, 100 shekels of silver, 500 shekels of silver, or 400 shekels of silver? 400 shekels of silver. Genesis 23:15-16. My lord, listen to me. The land is worth 400 shekels of silver. What is that between you and me? So bury your dead. And Abraham listened to Ephron, and Abraham weighed out the silver for Ephron. 47. How many years did Methuselah live? 930, 777, 969, or 856? 969. Genesis 5:27. So all the days of Methuselah were 969 years, and he died. 48. Which food did Jacob use to purchase Esau's birthright? Pottage of beans, bread and stew of lentils, a loaf of bread and bowl of porridge, or meat and wine? Bread and stew of lentils. Genesis 25:33-34. Then Jacob said, Swear to me as of this day. So he swore to him, and sold his birthright to Jacob. And Jacob gave Esau bread and stew of lentils. Then he ate and drank, and arose and went his way. 49. Why did Isaac go to Abimelech's land? He was seeking peace, following God's command, looking for a wife, or escaping a famine. He was escaping famine. Genesis 26:1. There was a famine in the land besides the first famine that was in the days of Abraham, and Isaac went to Abimelech king of the Philistines in Gerar. 50. Who were Abram's brothers? Nahor and Haran, Shem and Ham, Laban and Bethuel, or Terah and Nahor? Nahor and Haran. Genesis 11:26. Now Terah lived 70 years and begot Abram, Nahor, and Haran. 51. What position did Joseph hold in prison? Guard, warden, keeper of the keys, or overseer of the prisoners? Overseer of the prisoners. Genesis 39:22. When the keeper of the prison committed to Joseph's hand all the prisoners who were in the prison, whatever they did there, it was his doing. 52. According to Pharaoh's dream, where did the 7 fat cows and thin cows come from? The desert, river, earth, or sea? The river. Genesis 41:17-18. Then Pharaoh said to Joseph, Behold, in my dream I stood on the bank of the river. Suddenly 7 cows came up out of the river, fine looking and fat, and they fed in the meadow. 53. What qualities did Pharaoh say Joseph possessed? Brave and strong, honest and humble, faithful and loyal, or discerning and wise? Discerning and wise. Genesis 41:39. Then Pharaoh said to Joseph, Inasmuch as God has shown you all this, there is no one as discerning and as wise as you. 54. What name did Pharaoh give to Joseph? Zaphnath-Paneah, Abimelech, Benoni, or Asenath? Zaphnath-Paneah. Genesis 41:45, and Pharaoh called Joseph's name Zaphnath-Paneah, and he gave him as a wife Asenath, the daughter of Potiphera, priest of On. So Joseph went out over all the land of Egypt. 55. How many sons did Joseph have? 2, 12, 3, or 5? 2. Genesis 41:50, and to Joseph were born 2 sons before the years of famine came, whom Asenath, the daughter of Potiphera, priest of On, bore to him. 56. During Noah's time, to how many years did God reduce man's lifespan? 70, 500, 120, or 100? 120. Genesis 6:3, and the Lord said, My spirit shall not strive with man forever, for he is indeed flesh, yet his days shall be 120 years. 57. What was the occupation of Joseph's brothers? Farmers, merchants, shepherds, or soldiers? 'Shepherds. Genesis 47:3. Then Pharaoh said to his brothers, What is your occupation? And they said to Pharaoh, Your servants are shepherds, both we and also our fathers. 58. Which birds of prey did Abraham chase from the sacrifice he had offered to God? Eagles, vultures, hawks, or ravens? 'Vultures. Genesis 15:10 through 11. Then he brought all these to him and cut them in two, and placed each piece opposite the other, but he did not cut the birds in two. And when the vultures came down on the carcasses, Abram drove them away. 59. What did Isaac name the place he saw the vision of the ladder from earth to heaven? Luz, Bethel, Hebron, or Mahanaim? 'Bethel. Genesis 28:17-19. And he was afraid and said, How awesome is this place! This is none other than the house of God, and this is the gate of heaven. And he called the name of that place Bethel, but the name of that city had been Luz previously. 60. Where did Rachel and Jacob meet? At a well, in Laban's house, in a field, or on a mountain? 'At a well. Genesis 29:10. And it came to pass when Jacob saw Rachel the daughter of Laban his mother's brother, and the sheep of Laban his mother's brother, that Jacob went near and rolled the stone from the well's mouth and watered the flock. 61. What was Jacob's reaction when he saw Rachel? He kissed her and wept. Genesis 29:11 through 12. Then Jacob kissed Rachel and lifted up his voice and wept. And Jacob told Rachel that he was her father's relative and that he was Rebekah's son. So she ran and told her father. 62. To whom did Laban say, Surely you are my bone and my flesh? Jacob. Genesis 29:13. When Laban heard about Jacob his sister's son, he ran to meet him and brought him to his house. So he told Laban all these things, and Laban said to him, Surely you are my bone and my flesh. 63. Of the sons of Judah, who died in the land of Canaan? And Onan. Genesis 46:12. And the sons of Judah, and Onan, and Shelah, and Pharez, and Zerah, but and Onan died in the land of Canaan, and the sons of Pharez were Hezron and Hamul. 64. How many sons did Jacob have while crossing Jabbok? 11. Genesis 32:22. And he rose up that night, and took his 2 wives, and his 2 women servants, and his 11 sons, and passed over the ford Jabbok. 65. Whose nurse was Deborah? Rebekah's. Genesis 35:8. But Deborah, Rebekah's nurse, died, and she was buried beneath Bethel under an oak, and the name of it was called Allen Bekuth. 66. What did God do when he saw that Leah was unloved? He opened her womb. Genesis 29:31. When the Lord saw that Leah was unloved, he opened her womb, but Rachel was barren. 67. Who was Leah's second son? Simeon. Genesis 29:33. Then she conceived again and bore a son, and said, Because the Lord has heard that I am unloved, he has therefore given me this son also. And she called his name Simeon. 68. Who was Dan's biological mother? Bilhah. Genesis 30:5-6. And Bilhah conceived and bore Jacob a son. Then Rachel said, God has judged my case, and he also heard my voice and given me a son. Therefore she called his name Dan. 69. Who among Leah's sons brought mandrakes to her? Reuben. Genesis 30:14. Now Reuben went in the days of wheat harvest, and found mandrakes in the field, and brought them to his mother Leah. Then Rachel said to Leah, Please give me some of your son's mandrakes. 70. How many years did Jacob stay in Laban's home? years. Genesis 31:41. Thus I have been in your house 20 years. I served you 14 years for your 2 daughters and 6 years for your flock, and you have changed my wages 10 times. 71. Jacob's name was changed to Israel. Genesis 32:28. And he said, Your name shall no longer be called Jacob, but Israel, for you have struggled with God and with men and have prevailed. 72. How many angels came to Lot in Sodom? 2. Genesis 19:1. Now the 2 angels came to Sodom in the evening, and Lot was sitting in the gate of Sodom. When Lot saw them, he rose to meet them, and he bowed himself with his face toward the ground. 73. What did God use to destroy Sodom and Gomorrah? Brimstone and fire. Genesis 19:24. Then the Lord rained brimstone and fire on Sodom and Gomorrah from the Lord out of the heavens. 74. Where did Rachel hide Laban's household gods? Under her saddle. Genesis 31:34. Now Rachel had taken the household idols, put them in the camel's saddle, and sat on them, and Laban searched all about the tent but did not find them. 75. Between the butler and the baker, who was spared according to their dreams? The butler. Genesis 40:21-22. Then he restored the chief butler to his butlership again, and he placed the cup in Pharaoh's hand, but he hanged the chief baker as Joseph had interpreted to them. 76. What spirit did Pharaoh say was upon Joseph? The Spirit of God. Genesis 41:38. And Pharaoh said to his servants, "Can we find such a one as this, a man who is in whom is the Spirit of God?" 77. What did God promise to those who cursed Abraham? They'd be cursed. Genesis 12:3. I will bless those who bless you, and will curse him who curses you, and in you all the families of the earth shall be blessed. 78. Which people were envious of Isaac and closed the wells he had dug? The Philistines. Genesis 26:15. Now the Philistines had stopped up all the wells which his father's servants had dug in the days of Abraham his father, and they had filled them with earth. 79. From which nationality did Esau marry his first two wives? Hittites. Genesis 26:34. When Esau was 40 years old, he took as wives Judith, the daughter of Beeri the Hittite, and Basemath, the daughter of Elon the Hittite. 80. Who falsely accused Joseph of trying to seduce her? Potiphar's wife. Genesis 39:7. And it came to pass after these things that his master's wife, Potiphar's wife, cast longing eyes on Joseph, and she said, "Lie with me," but he refused. And that's all the questions we have for today. So remember, let us know how you did down below and share this with your friends and family, and we'll see you in the next one.